Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wellbeing at Work, a workplace options podcast. I'm Ryan Arruda, a global marketing and communications intern here at WPO.
And I'm Emma Goldstein, an internal communications intern.
And today we'd like to talk about Gen Z entering the workforce. So it's definitely not a widely spoken about topic, as Gen Z is the newest generation entering the workforce, but we wanted to create this podcast to give listeners and all viewers an insight to how we're feeling, to what we're seeing, and bring on some professionals to also discuss the topic. So, without further ado, like we mentioned, I'm Ryan, this is Emma, and we will be your hosts for this wonderful podcast. So, Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Emma. I'm a public relations and sports media dual major at the University of Rhode Island. I'm coming up on my junior year now. And right now I'm interning. I'm a marketing intern at Workplace Options. And I love storytelling, whether that's like on the mic at a baseball game announcing what's going on or like through a campaign deck. I just really like to get across the message of whatever like brand or company I'm supporting. And I'm really excited that I get to bring that into the world of work and like get to put my own special touch on the things that I like am a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. A little about myself. Again, my name is Ryan. I'm also a student at the University of Rhode Island, studying journalism and political science and minoring in general business. Like Emma, of course, I'm a marketing intern here at Workplace Options, and I'm beyond excited to be bringing you this podcast um, in conjunction with recording with Emma. A little kind of tidbit about me. I am from Dartmouth, Massachusetts. Along with being an intern, I actually work at a local creamery this summer. But working at Workplace Options and seeing the many benefits that this company has to offer made me realize that creation of a podcast of this sorts would be extremely valuable. Um, Last week, 2 weeks ago, it was the 2025 COE Week, Center of Organizational Effectiveness. And that really spoke on tips for being a leader, supporting your workplace, psychological safety. And I think those are all crucial things. And it really spoke, though, to the group that was involved in the workplace. I think sometimes when we look at generational groups in the workplace, Gen Z, since they're so new, there's so little about that group. So, Emma, how to begin our, first question on the podcast here? How did you enter the workplace, whether it be a minimum wage position or an internship or something else? How did you enter the workforce, and how did you see that as a member of Gen Z?
So my first like real job was my sophomore year of high school. I applied to a restaurant like down the street from my house, and I ended up getting the job. And because like I knew a couple people like in the grade above me that worked there from my high school, so I was like, why not? And I didn't have my license, so it was perfect because I could walk to and from because my parents worked. And so I went in for my first day of training, and like immediately I was anxious because I didn't understand any of the lingo. Like restaurant lingo is very specific and I never like had any experience with it, and everyone was using it, so I was confused. I had never learned how to use a POS system. Like I never had to talk to customers. I never really talked to like adults that were strangers. I was 16, and I also suffered from severe social anxiety, and that's actually this job like cured me. And it's actually what I ended up writing my college essay about. I wrote it about the restaurant and like how it fixed my social anxiety and all of the issues that I was able to overcome through it. But like my first couple weeks was like actually dreadful because I I'm not a very fast learner when it comes to like things like that I am not familiar with or like have no interest in, I guess you would say. So when I was being trained by my coworkers, I just like basically was clueless, and like I felt really stupid because everyone around me knew what they were doing and knew each other and they were comfortable in the environment, but I like was so uncomfortable because I had never experienced anything like it before. But eventually I kind of had to cut myself some slack because I was like, this is literally completely new to me. Like the only thing I had ever done before that is like lifeguarding, and I don't have to talk to anyone when I'm a lifeguard. But it like really opens up my personality, and like I talk a lot, and like I think that that job really helped me like find who I am as a person, and like made me passionate about communicating with other people and like having conversations and getting a point across. And it like absolutely inspired me to like do what I am doing in college. But when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. And I feel like as we are entering the workforce, it's like completely mirrored, like that experience of like not knowing how to talk to a customer at a minimum wage job in a restaurant is like fully the same as like going to your first day in corporate America and like being met by a bunch of 40-year-olds that are like upset that you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And to touch on the point of working in a restaurant, I think that's very similar with most all people in our generation. I started at a bakery, and it was also because of a connection that I had there. And yeah, that same experience, just staring at that POS system and having people over your shoulder pointing to like what you're supposed to press and a customer standing there waiting for a response. Yeah,
It's
completely
so
understand that.
humbling.
Oh, of course. It is beyond humbling when you're there and you're walking in, oh, I got this. And then you get there and you're like, wow, okay, it's time to really lock down. But yeah, that experience is absolutely mirrored because though that we've been some to most members of Gen Z have been working for years in these different, minimum wage or slightly more paid positions, but really service jobs that are open to the public. Once these members of our generation go through formal schooling or if they approach a trade, it is that same mirror of entering the workforce and having no idea what's going on. And for Gen Z, it is a little bit different. We've been through a lot in our lifetimes, as many people do think that we're so new that we don't really know what's going on. Within the past 5 to 10 years alone, we've been through numerous global conflicts, a worldwide pandemic, global shutdowns. And not only did this build resiliency upon Gen Z, but it changed the entire game. So Gen Z really has no idea what the road was before. And that makes it so much confusing as they try and navigate the road now, because it's really not just Gen Z, it's a whole generational issue. No generation really knows this new process as it's being created as the time goes on. When someone enters the workplace, it's different than it was 20 years ago, which was different than it was 30 years before that. So Gen Z, though, at this turning point, is now stuck because they've been in former schooling for 4 years, been through so much. But as they try and enter this workforce, now they're hitting the bar where, A, some people don't even want Gen Z there. They want, you know, some formally educated, long-term staff there. But B, Gen Z can't even get an entry-level position. Anytime that I go on LinkedIn or I go on Indeed just to take a look around, I'm hit with the wall of a beautiful entry-level position designed for college graduates or juniors in college. And that dreadful, dreadful line in the requirements box, 7 years experience. Have you been faced with that too, Emma, or is that just me?
Yeah, I just don't get it. Like, how am I supposed to have 7 years of experience if I just spent the last 4 years trapped at college?
Hmm.
Like, what do you mean 7 years of experience? That would date all the way back to sophomore year of high school when I started my job at the restaurant that I'm still working at because I can't get an entry level job.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like we're like stuck in this loop. Not only is that experience mirrored when entering the workplace, but now we can't even get our foot in the door.
Mhm.
You watch these satirical videos online and It's all, it's made to be like these older parents being like, well, why don't you just walk in and ask the manager if they have any jobs open? And some
Why
of those
don't you
satirical,
just call Taylor up?
yeah, why don't we
Like,
just call Taylor up?
we
But
can't call Taylor.
we can't do it anymore because what our parents and some other members of older generations don't understand is that culture is gone. Whether it
Mhm.
was eradicated from COVID or, you know, the recession in the early 2000 or late 2000s rather, or any other event that happened, that culture is gone from the workplace. So not having that experience is wildly difficult. However, one of the things that could sub in, maybe not for 7 years, but for at least some of that time, is an internship. So a little bit about myself again with the whole battle of internships. I am a rising senior at the University of Rhode Island, like I mentioned, and last summer as well as this summer, I applied to probably about not an extreme amount, but about 10 internships this summer and a few last summer. And I can proudly say, not only did I not hear back from a majority of them, but I was not able to receive any of them, which is fine. And again, it's a humbling experience.
It's fine.
But fortunately, through, again, connections, which is, as I look back, almost how I received every job by knowing someone, connections at the University of Rhode Island, I was very fortunate enough to be introduced to workplace options. And not only have they given me a chance, but now I'm able to record this wonderful podcast and speak to all of you. So as Gen Z kind of grows up, we are seeing that, we're completely unable to get that 7 years of experience. As Emma said, we'd be sophomores in college or high school rather, but an internship may be able to sub in for that. So Emma, would you like to speak, on your behalf and your internship, your
I would like to. So obviously, as I am a rising junior, this was my first summer applying to internships. And like, so honestly, I applied to like over 50. Like every single day I was on LinkedIn and I was just applying to every single one that came up, whether it was in sports media or PR or marketing or business. Like even if my major didn't match it, I was sending them my resume. I was so desperate because like I didn't want to just I also work at a hot dog restaurant and I didn't want to sell hot dogs again this summer. And I still am selling hot dogs, but luckily I am also here because of a professor that I have had the opportunity to make a wonderful connection with. I had him for a class my freshman year, and then I purposely enrolled in as many classes of his classes as I could for my sophomore and junior year. Shout out Professor June Kim. I literally owe everything to you because he like mentioned to I was taking his PRS 300 class this past semester, and he mentioned that this company was looking for summer interns. So I emailed him and I was like, please, I'm available. And he was like, fantastic. Like, so he had me send him my resume and he sent it to them. And then I got this lovely internship. And I just like, not only was it like perfect because I had a connection, but I also now get to like work for a company that like cares about something and that like is passionate about what matters, and mental health and well-being in the workplace is something that I really value, but also our entire generation really values. And I don't know, I feel like already having the opportunity to be at WPO, like my eyes have already been open to like so many things I didn't understand how like I didn't know how they worked, like how global teams operate, how like internal, external messaging is like different from one another. And also like just what it looks and feels like to work for a company that like talks the talk but also walks the walk. You know what I mean? Like they take pride in like the message, like brand messaging, but also like that is heavily reflected on like employee to employee contact. Like our managers and our higher ups like care deeply about us and about all of the employees at WPO, and they make it so obvious, which is like very comforting feeling.
Absolutely. And I think that is, like you said, it's one of the things that Gen Z values most that we're not seeing. So not only are we not even able to get our foot in the door and get access to positions at these companies, but we really look a little deeper when we're applying. We're like, wow, do I really even want to work here? With the workplace options, again, you had Professor Jude Kim. I was so fortunate to have Professor Mandy Zhang. Um, but when you have a company like Workplace Options who make it so very clear their goal, their values, and their need in this space, it is beyond necessary to have these connections, to have this kind of open environment of communication that many companies are not having. So now Gen Z, again, we are mirroring past experiences, but and something we'll talk about in a future episode is how, we're always facing crossroads because we faced a crossroad just applying to these places. You face another crossroad by applying to 50 of them because maybe that hot dog job isn't sounding so bad this summer if you know that no one's going to get back to you. And now you may get accepted to a company or you're looking at it when applying and you're thinking, wow, okay, I'm looking at them. You have people post about it online. Is this someplace that I really want to work for? So it's definitely food for thought among members of our generation, but I absolutely agree with you, Emma. The necessity for a company like Workplace Options and the current global environment we're in is so important. Having a company that thrives on employee connections, proper leadership, modeling across all levels of an organization is beyond necessary and really a goal for all companies to set in their mission statements and in their values.
Yeah.
So I think we had a really wonderful discussion.
Yeah.
So thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening. Please stay tuned for next week's episode where we'll talk with Dr. Kenneth Thigpen Harris, Chief Clinical Officer at WPO, about the enduring impact of COVID on the workplace. Until then, thanks for listening and take care.